Hi, I'm Ben. Welcome back to my channel, where today I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag. And yes, I have just stolen the idea of using that clip from the incomparable Simon Savage, but imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If you are watching this and thinking, Ben, you look a little bit hot and sweaty, well, it's because I am. The UK is in the midst of a bit of a meteorological freakout at the moment. It's very warm, it's like 32 degrees, and if you ask any British person, they will tell you it's too hot. I know the usual response to that from people who live in hotter climates is like, it's actually not that hot. But the UK is just not set up for this kind of heat. Like, our houses are designed to keep heat in. They do an annoyingly good job of that. And we also don't really have much air conditioning. Like, you have it in offices and supermarkets, but not really in homes. It's amazing really how many times a day I felt the urge to go and buy groceries. But all that is to say, try not to pay attention to the beads of sweat dripping down my forehead. And if you are in the UK or anywhere else that's hot, this is your reminder to make sure you stay hydrated. I don't do many tags on this channel, but I do think the mid-year freakout tag is a good one. It's a nice little check-in midway through the year. It's 15 questions. And because I've been on a break, it's actually quite a nice way to catch you up with some of the stuff that I've been reading that I maybe haven't talked about on the channel yet. Let's dive right in with question 1, which is, what is the best book you have read so far this year? And for me, that's got to be Mother Naked by Glenn James Brown. I reviewed this on the channel just before I went away, and it's just a really entertaining barnstormer of a novel. Very, very inventive and fun and intriguing and playful, and I absolutely loved it. I'm not sure if anything in the second half of the year is going to quite outdo this, but last year I felt the same way about James, and in the end Glorious Exploits came along and became my favourite novel of the year. So we've got 6 months of reading left, and we'll see if anything can win over against Mother Naked. Question 2 is best sequel you've read so far. And this is my 3rd year doing this tag, and for the 3rd time I have not read a sequel at this point in the year. I do have one book that I can kind of put as the answer for this, but it's not an exact match. It's not a square peg in a round hole, but it's like like an oval peg in a circular hole. Anyway, what's the bloody book, Ben? It is Boulder by Ava Baltazar, translated by Julia Sanchez. And this is not necessarily a sequel because it does not continue the story from a previous novel, but it is the second in a triptych of books that Baltazar has written along, I think, similar thematic lines. The other cheat here is that I haven't actually read the first one either, which is Permafrost. But that is supposed to be really good. And then the third one's called Mammoth. I really love this. The writing is so beautiful and crisp. It's almost a shock to me to think this was not originally written in English, because the English prose is so beautiful. I also got a very good sense of place. Like, a lot of this is set in Reykjavik, and I read it in February when I went to Reykjavik on holiday, and yeah, I just had a really great time with it, and I can see why this was a fan favourite when it was shortlisted for the International Booker. Question 3, new release that you haven't read yet but want to. And actually one of these is a sequel, which is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I guess I don't read a lot of like fantasy or YA or what is this, like dystopian death adventure? But I did read The Hunger Games when I was at university, and I absolutely loved it. I ate those books up, I devoured them, and although I didn't read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I just heard so many good things about Sunrise on the Reaping and how much it was worth Suzanne Collins revisiting this world yet again, that I just couldn't resist grabbing a copy. And what else was quite exciting when I got it home was that it's also got some cool foiling on the actual board of the hardcover. And I love that, because whenever I'm reading a hardcover, I do take the dust jacket off and leave it behind. And it's a shame when the books look so boring when you take the dust jacket off. So it's really cool when there's a design on there. There are, of course, a bunch of literary fiction novels that I also very much want to get to that have come out recently. One is Great Black Hope by Rob Franklin, and someone on Instagram was absolutely raving about this, and it really convinced me to want to read it. But it's about a black queer man in the US who gets into a bit of trouble, I think to do with drugs, and he finds that his navigation of the justice system sort of protects him because of his class, because he's quite wealthy, but does not protect him because of his race. And I think the conflict of those two things sounds really interesting. So that sounds great. Another book that I'd heard absolutely rave reviews for on Instagram was Ordinary Saints by Neve Alone. This was very kindly sent to me by the publishers Manila Press, and it's since been nominated for the Waterstones Debut Fiction Prize. And this is one, actually, I don't know too much about the plot. I've just heard that it is incredible, and I want to go into it with my eyes closed. Well, not closed because I want to be able to read it, but I mean like my eyes closed to any details about the book, so that I can just, I don't know, take it all in and experience it and have it surprise me. But I know it's queer, I know it talks about religion, and it's set in Ireland, and all of those sound like ingredients for a book that I am going to love. So I really want to prioritise this very soon. And then the other recent-ish release, at least here in the UK, that I really want to get to is Rejection by Tony Tulatamuti. This was released last year in the US. It was nominated for the National Book Awards for fiction, and people went absolutely crazy about it. How fun and inventive it is, how much it speaks to our current moment and like our internet age. But it came out in the UK more recently, and I grabbed a copy, and I still have not got to it, but I really would like to. Question 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And I've got a few answers for this because, as you may know if you followed this channel for any period of time, I get very overexcited about new releases, and despite my best efforts to try and read some backlist and read some older books, I just get drawn in by shiny new things. And so I do, of course, have a very long list of books that I'm excited about, but I'm only going to tell you about 4 in particular. One is Helm by Sarah Hall, which I mentioned recently on my Booker predictions. It's like this massive story of the history of Britain as told through like interactions with this named wind, this wind that has persisted for a very long time in the north of England. It sounds just really ambitious and exciting and something fresh. So I'm looking forward to getting my mitts on that. I'm also very interested in Tony Interrupter by Nicola Barker. I've never read Nicola Barker before, but I know she's a fun and exciting and inventive writer who does some weird things. She's been recognised by the Booker Prize on multiple occasions and is definitely in with a shot of being longlisted again this year. And I think this book is about basically an occurrence at a stand-up comedy gig or some sort of show where there is a heckler, and basically all of the knock-on consequences as a result of that heckler's actions. And yeah, I just think it would be an interesting first taste of Nicola Barker's work. I'm also really looking forward to Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. Ryan is an American author, and the reason I'd heard about this book was, again, another like Instagram recommendation where someone had got their hands on a proof and they said it was just this like beautiful, gorgeous, funny story that had echoes for them of The Bee Sting, and I really adored The Bee Sting. So any book that is going to recreate that feeling is probably going to be a winner for me. And then my 4th and final pick is one that I actually have a copy of, which is Priya Hind's second novel, Tamarin. If you are not familiar with Priya Hind, she wrote Rion Bell a few years ago, and it was my favourite book of the year in the year that I read that. That was a very short novel told in lots of vignettes. It had lots going on. I think this is a more straightforward novel, so just like straight prose the whole way through, and it's about a woman in Mauritius who looks to find happiness in London and experiences some sort of betrayal. Again, it's another one that I want to go in without knowing too much about it and just like let Priya take me on this journey. But yeah, I'm going to read this a little bit closer to its release date in September. Question 5 is biggest disappointment. And it pains me to say this, but I think my biggest disappointment so far has been The Coin by Yasmin Zaher. This won the Dylan Thomas Prize, so it is very well received by critics. It's done very well with a lot of readers as well. It's about a wealthy Palestinian woman who lives and works in New York, and she works with, I think, underprivileged boys at a school. But then on the side, she also gets caught up in some strange scenarios, like she lets this homeless man come and live in her apartment with her, and then gets involved in a scheme that he sort of pursues that involves Birkin bags. And it's quite funny, and then it gets very strange. And I can see some of the virtues of what this book is trying to do about like how people cope with things, or how they don't cope with things that are much bigger than themselves. But I found it a little bit too strange. It didn't quite convince me to come along with it. But it's not the worst book that I've read this year. It just didn't live up to the expectations that I had for it. So yeah, it was a shame that this was a disappointment for me. Question 6 is, what's the biggest surprise of the year so far? And I've got 2 books that I'm going to mention here. One, I guess, is sort of a reverse situation of the coin, where I had heard really bad things about this book. And so I went into it with quite low expectations. But it really delighted me. I had a very good time with it, and that was Vernon God Little by DBC Pierre. It just had this incredible voice. I mean, it's written by an Australian, and it's almost a caricature of a young boy in Texas, and this Texan vernacular and voice that maybe doesn't ring true, but it didn't matter too much to me in the reading of the book, because I just found it so singular and quite engaging and exciting. I knew who this character was. It's a very odd, unusual plot that just gets crazier and crazier with every turn of the page. And I had a really good time with it, and felt very invested in the story. And so I think what I've learned from reading this book is, like, don't always listen to the haters. Another book that surprised me and that I wanted to give a shout out to was Bonehorn by Prudence Bussey Chamberlain. This is published by Cypher Press. If you're not familiar with them, they are a small indie press that focus on queer stories, and they publish a lot of sort of trans stories as well. This is a book that I picked up at an event I went to that was like an indie press showcase, and I'd never heard of it before, but Prue was on this panel and she started talking about her book, and it's about a it's about a detective for hire who goes in search of Alice B. Toklas's horn, like an actual physical horn on her head that Picasso once mentioned but was taken as a joke. And in this book, someone thinks that actually that's real, and it could change the course of academic history and study when it comes to Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas. And it's just a lot of fun, underpinned by some like real emotional depth. I loved it. It was like unexpected in the best way. It is incredibly horny in more ways than one, and I definitely recommend giving this a go if you are intrigued by the premise. Question 7 is favourite new author, and that can be a debut author or an established author that's new to you. And I find this question quite hard to answer because there aren't any authors that are new to me this year that I've read more than one book from, and I don't know if I can call someone a favourite author if I haven't read more than one of their books. Like, if I read a second one and I didn't like it as much, do they have to be demoted from favourite author status? It's too much of a risk. I do think probably the author that stands the best chance of becoming a favourite for me this year, and where I guess I've put my money where my mouth is Glenn James Brown. Like, Mother Naked was so good that I pretty immediately went out and grabbed his first novel, Ironopolis, which was shortlisted for the Portico Prize and shortlisted for the Orwell Prize for Political Fiction. It's a much longer book by the looks of it. I think it's set up in Middlesbrough somewhere. And I've been told by sources that I trust that it's really, really good. So I do want to prioritise this sometime soon. And maybe Glenn James Brown will join my list of favourite authors once I've read this. Question 8 is the one, I guess in previous years, I have resisted the premise of the question, which is newest fictional crush. But you know what? Let's just go along with it this year. And I'm about to I guess, display some red flag tendencies and say that I kind of crushed on the entire cast of Waist Deep by Linnea Meyer Ernst, which was translated by Sherilyn Nicolette Helberg. This is a pretty short novel about a group of friends who go on a holiday. They've been friends since they were at university, and they're all grown up now. They're in their 30s. Are they in their 30s? Well, whatever age they are, they're at an age where I guess their lives have gone in reasonably different directions, and they are old enough that it's legit that some of them have got married and started families, but that others are sort of still finding their feet and not sure what they want to do with their lives. And it's just this really interesting set of character portraits, and I don't know, I just found myself drawn to them. The problem is they are mostly like annoying and childish and selfish and don't really respect their friendships enough to treat their friends with any courtesy and grace, and some naughty stuff goes on. But I think that's a sign of good writing, that despite all of that, there was a magnetism to these characters. They felt very real and grounded, and you kind of wanted to know them. And some of the characters have crushes on the other characters, and the way that that's described kind of draws you into also crushing on them as well. So that is maybe a very worrying answer to that question, but it's how I feel. Question 9 is newest favourite character. And until very recently, the answer to that was going to be Mother Naked himself, because I thought he was like a really well-drawn character. But someone has, as of like 3 weeks ago, jumped right to the front of the queue, and that has to be Gail from 3 Days in June, which is their latest novel from Anne Tyler. And Gail is just this super interesting character. So she's the protagonist of the novel, and the novel set over 3 days. The day before, the day of, and the day after Gail's daughter's wedding. And Gail's like this really interesting, very direct, slightly spiky, but very funny woman. She has like a very firm grip on herself and the world. And during the book, I guess, she learns to question some of that and to ease up on some of that. But I found reading her really entertaining. And Tyler just has a gift for normal people and making their experiences feel quite extraordinary. I really loved this book. I thought it was fantastic, and a lot of that is down to the characterization of Gail. Question 10 is a book that made you cry, brackets, saddest book you have read. I don't know why that clarification is needed, but there it is. I would say quite surprisingly to me, because it wasn't actually the vibe of the book, but upon finishing 3 Days in June, like at the very end, I felt quite overwhelmed with emotion, and I teared up a little bit. But that's definitely not the saddest book I've read, because the saddest book I've read is A Room Above a Shop by Anthony Shapland. This is just a gorgeous, gorgeous book that I've reviewed on the channel previously. It's about a love story between two men in 1980s Wales, in a former mining town, at a time when I guess homophobia, institutional homophobia, was something that gay men really had to contend with. It's just this beautiful story of safety and safe spaces, and how and where we can find love, and I just adored the book. And when a book has its claws in you, then it's a great opportunity for it to make you cry, and this one did just that. Actually, another one that has made me slightly weepy, even though I'm like, I think I'm like 10 pages into it or something, but it is already just overwhelmingly emotional. The Story of a Heart by Rachel Clark. This won the Women's Prize for Non-Fiction this year. It's about a heart transplant, which is going to be an emotional thing regardless, but the patients in this story are children. So it's about the young girl who died and gave her heart, and the boy who needed it. And man, yeah, it's very well written. It's clearly well researched, but it's just done in such like a I think, emotionally generous way. And I've only read 10 pages of it, so I dread to think what it is going to do to my tear ducts as I read more of it. But yeah, brilliant so far. Thankfully, the next question is a little antidote to sadness, which is a book that made you happy. And I always struggle to give one answer to any of these questions, clearly, and I've got 3 for this one. So a couple of books that I think are fun and funny and entertaining that I've read this year. And I do think it's really hard to be funny in a book. Like, rarely do I laugh out loud at something I'm reading, and everyone's humour is different. So when you say something is funny, that's not like an objective truth. In a way that saying something is sad feels a little bit more universally true. Anyway, I'm rambling, and the two books that have made me chuckle this year. One is Fundamentally by Nasiba Yunus. This was nominated for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and it's a surprisingly humorous look at someone going to work at the UN to put in place a program to try and de-radicalise or reintegrate ISIS brides. But it's done with a humour and a tone that was really unexpectedly funny and joyful, and I had a great time with it. I still think about Jason, the sheikh from California. Yeah, it's a really cracking read and was very well done on audio. I think that really enhanced the experience for me. Another was The Proof of My Innocence by Jonathan Coe, and I guess this is another one that's like addressing politics with humour, and it's a book that plays a lot with form and is essentially 3 books in one that are all different styles. So it tackles like cozy crime, it tackles autofiction, and I cannot remember the other one, but it does another style of novel. It's inventive, it's playful, it has a structure that revolves around the National Rail security announcement that has the tagline "See it, say it, sorted." So that's what the different sections of the book are called. And yeah, I'd never read any Jonathan Coe. I think he's an author that I'd like to read some more of. It's not super taxing reading at the sentence level, but I think he's doing something that's actually quite interesting in the context of like the UK's political atmosphere right now. And I had a very good time with it. My final happy pick is a book with a slightly weirder premise, but no worse for it, and that is We Hexed the Moon by Molly Hall Seeley. And this is a book about 4 teenage girls who try and hex the moon, and what happens as a result is that the moon disappears from the sky, but she doesn't disappear forever. You notice I'm calling her she, because she becomes sort of personified and appears in one of the girls' bedrooms, and she is very much pissed off at the idea that these girls thought they could like chant an incantation and make the moon go away, and she's going to punish them for it. And it's this really unusual but fun ride. It's about friendship. Yeah, it's a wild, fun ride. It's not perfect. You can tell that this is a debut novel, but I am excited to see what Molly Hall Seeley does next, because she has definitely got a knack for the way that characters speak to each other and they interact. Question 12 is favourite book to film adaptation you saw this year, and my favourite has got to be Mickey 17, which is an adaptation of the novel Mickey 7 by a man whose name I have forgotten. I haven't actually read the book. I know that Roro Reads has done a review of this book and enjoyed it. He thought it was like fun, pulpy, not too deep sci-fi adventure. And I guess that kind of describes the film as well. I don't know how great an adaptation it is, but just as a film, I had a lot of fun with it. It was funny, it was farcical, it reminded me a lot of Don't Look Up. So if you hated Don't Look Up, you probably won't enjoy Mickey 17. But if you liked it, I think it's worth giving Mickey 17 a go. Question 13. Favourite video you've done so far this year? And I'm not 100% sure. Like, there are videos that I do every year that I really, really enjoy putting together. Obviously, my Booker predictions videos are ones that I absolutely love. And it was great to come back with one of those last week. Other than that, I think the videos I'm most proud of this year have got to be, one would be my International Booker Longlist reaction video. One, because it was like unexpectedly funny because I was just sitting waiting for this video that didn't actually appear. But it's the first time I've ever done a live reaction to anything, and doing live reactions scares the living daylights out of me. So it was fun to conquer that fear slightly, and for the video to turn out quite well. The other is the Japan vlog that I did, because that was a year in the making, not a year of effort. I just took so long to get going with that video and to actually do all that admin required to make it work. There were just so many clips, like little video clips that I'd taken on the trip, like hundreds and hundreds of them, and going through them all and deciding what was going to make the video and what wasn't. It just took a really long time, and iCloud is very slow at getting those like from the cloud onto my computer. So that video took ages. I'm very, very happy to have like a wonderful memento of an incredible trip. Like, it's the best holiday I've ever been on. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with that, and it's one that I will almost certainly watch back in the future, which I can't say for a lot of my videos. Okay, question 14, the penultimate question, is most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received? And I've got a couple of answers for this, which are kind of variations on a theme actually. The first one I think is quite possibly my favourite cover of the year so far. It's Sarah Moss's Ripeness. I just think there's something so like lush and verdant about this cover. It's also like not like a photograph of plants. It's this beautiful, slightly impressionist painting, and the colours, they just look so good. Like, I love this. The other is also a book that is quite lush and green and nature-like, and that is Sean Hewitt's Open Heaven. And the reason I particularly love this is that this is a special edition of the book that I ordered from a bookshop in Ireland called Kenny's, who shipped it over here to the UK for almost the same price as just buying it here. So that was a nice little bonus. But this edition doesn't have a dust jacket, so this cover is printed directly on the board. It does have a bit of a gummy texture, which I don't love, but I do like that when I finally get around to reading this, it won't look boring and dull. It will have its actual cover, including some lovely foiled text, which you should be able to see if I wiggle it around like so. The final question then is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And there are so many, like, it actually hurts to think about. And they're coming from a bunch of different sources. So number one, I am so behind on pretty much every reading challenge that I'm doing. I think I'm like 2 months behind on the Savage reading challenge. I'm 1 month behind on my TBR spin stuff that Sarah at Freshly Read Books runs. And then I'm 2 months behind on my own challenge, the Read Good challenge. I have not been able to keep up, and I'm not sure why that is. I think I do have like a resistance to authority, even when that authority is myself. So I have just kept rebelling and reading by whim, whatever excites me most. So I've got some catch up to do, but that's fine, we can do that. The other thing I am very, very conscious of is that I'm going to read the entire Booker Longlist once again this year. So that is up to 13 books that are going to be added to my TBR straight away on the 29th of July. I'm hoping that I will have read like 3 or 4 of the books already, because I have read a lot of new releases, but we shall see. It could be a list full of complete surprises. And then I also just have some books on my TBR that I really, really would like to get to this year, and I'll just show you a couple of those. One is Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. I've not heard from anyone who has read this who has a bad word to say about it. It's quite a long book, but it just seems incredible. The first page is so good. I need to prioritize it. I keep worrying. I think it's my classics fear, right? That I want to be in the right headspace to fully get the most out of it. And if I'm reading this really long classic book and I can see like all these new releases just like piled up on the other side of the room, that I am going to be a bad reader and not pay due attention to this book. But I need to stop being an idiot and just read it. And then there are a couple of hardbacks that I got last year that I still haven't got to, which I feel like I'm going to have to rescind my literary fiction reader's card if I don't get around to these. One is Sally Rooney's Intermezzo, which it fills me with shame to know that this is now out in paperback. This is supposed to be really good. I know some people hate Sally Rooney, but I love her stuff. So I think that's going to be a winner for me. And also, not only would I have to rescind my literary reader card, but if I don't read some Alan Hollinghurst soon, I'm going to have to give back my gay card as well, because I have Our Evenings and I have not read Our Evenings. I half hope that it's going to get a Booker nomination just to force me to read it, but this is the sweeping tale of the life of an actor, and it just sounds magnificent, and I need to prioritise it. Like, I'm just in my head being like, could I read this next? Do I have time to finish this before the Booker longlist? Maybe I do. Anyway, I do want to read that soon, regardless. So that was the mid-year freakout tag. If you are still watching at this point, thank you for sticking with me through all of those rambling answers. That was, I guess, slightly more chaotic filming process for me than most of my videos usually are. If you have a YouTube channel and you would like to do the tag, consider yourself tagged. If you don't have a YouTube channel and you'd still like to answer the questions, I will post them all in the description so you can like copy and paste and answer in a comment. I'd be really interested to know what your answers are. As ever, if you enjoyed this video and you wanted to hit like, I'd be really grateful. And if this is the first time you're seeing content from me, you'd like to see more, then hit subscribe, and I aim to do a video about once a week. But until next time, toodles.